You're listening to NorthWoods Church Matters, a podcast of NorthWoods Church in Evansville, Indiana, where we discuss why the local church matters and things that matter to the local church. I'm your host, Matt Higgins.
Welcome back to the NorthWoods Church Matters podcast. My name is Darin Garton. I'm the executive pastor, and this is my maiden voyage as a host of the NorthWoods Church Matters podcast. We're excited to be with you. I am here with our lead pastor, Bobby Pell.
That's me.
And our director of women's ministry, Rachel Bland. And also we have a special guest with us, Josh Lassiter from the International Mission Board that we're going to be probably referring to as the Imb in this. So if you hear that, that's what those code words are. We're excited to have him here. I'll let him introduce his role.
So as Darin said, my name is Josh, and I'm privileged to get to work with the International Mission Board now here on the home team in the U.S. I actually grew up on the mission field. So my parents were Imb Missionaries. When I was 13 months old, we packed up and moved overseas, spent 10 years suffering for Jesus on the beaches of the Caribbean in St. Vincent. After that, we moved to Suriname, South America, is right above Brazil, tiny country there. And then I actually graduated high school in Quito, Ecuador. My parents remained on the field for a number of years until they retired a couple of years back, and they now live in Texas. I went on to Baylor University in Texas, worked in a variety of different roles at Baylor, went to seminary, and now I'm privileged to serve as a stewardship advisor with the IMB. So my job is to connect with individuals all around the South and the Midwest, and have conversations about giving directly towards the efforts of the International Mission Board, whether it's the Lottie Moon Christmas offering, which this is a big time of the year for that. Mm-hmm. We're having a lot of those kind of conversations. Or maybe it's talking about specific ministry projects or different things that might be going on with our missionaries. And so I truly love it and mostly enjoy getting to work with folks like y'all who just so well understand the importance of the local church in the fulfillment of the Great Commission. This is a partnership between the local church and the International Mission Board. We fully believe in that, and it's always exciting to have these opportunities to chat with y'all and the membership at your church.
Well, we're glad you're here, and we like to say Josh makes our dreams come true because we have a dream to be involved in missions and to have an impact really everywhere, all over the world, and he is somebody who knows what's going on and can help us be involved with him. And Bobby, I was just going to say that we have come to know Josh, even, I would say, love Josh. And we wanted to have a podcast where people heard from him. Bobby, why did you want people to hear from him?
I think when we have people from the IMB here, it's wise for us to take advantage. You and I were at Richmond. We'd never been on the IMB campus. Josh and Chris were kind enough to give us a tour. Just the tour was a somewhat life-changing.
Oh, very moving.
And the way we saw missions for Southern Baptists. So very much appreciate the tour that Josh and Chris gave us while we were there and the way that they treated us. Separate from, if you would, the donor development part of the process that Josh does currently, the years of what he understands about the IMB goes well beyond that. Mm-hmm. And he understands the process. He understands what they do. He understands where they live when they're receiving training. He understands the whole scope. That's why I wanted our congregation to be able to hear from Josh.
He's lived it really from both sides of it as somebody who's involved as a missionary kid and also as somebody who's serving there. And you've had the opportunity to sort of have a front row seat to what's going on. Mm. Would you mind updating us on kind of what's happening with the IMB right now? What do churches need to know about what's happening?
Yeah, thank you so much. And I pinch myself every day in my job because I get to see some of the amazing things that God is doing around the world through our missionaries. The fact of the matter is the need is still so great. Every day, 155,000 people die around the world without ever having the opportunity to hear the name of Jesus or respond to a call to faith. I'm not an expert on Evansville, but I think the population of Evansville is, about 150,000-ish people. Every day, Evansville dies without ever having the opportunity to hear the name of Jesus. And so that's why the Great Commission is so important for us to all embrace, no matter what your job is, no matter where you live, whether you're here in the U.S. or abroad. I'll just be really honest. God is doing amazing things amongst our missionaries. In 2020, we were really interested on what it would look like with our missionary involvement. Maybe I was even a little bit nervous, right? Because You know that many of our missionaries had to stay home during COVID. Some of our missionaries had to come back to the U.S. The typical or stereotypical missionary endeavor was very different during COVID. We do this annual statistical report, and it's not about the numbers, but I think the numbers that came out from 2020 really show how God said, yeah, COVID's a big deal, but I'm God and watch me work. And so I'll share some of these, but during 2020, the International Mission Board appointed 422 new missionaries during 2020. We now have about 3,500 total field personnel, and we like to say thousands and thousands of more of their children around the world as well. But during 2020, the work of our Imb Missionaries looked like this. Over 760,000 people heard a gospel witness during 2020. There were 570,000 opportunities to respond to the gospel, which led to 145,000 new believers. Isn't that incredible? Around the world. 86,000 baptisms took place, 18,000 new churches were planted, and 127,000 people around the world received leadership training, even during a global pandemic. And for me, it's so encouraging because it really is like God said, hey, I know that this is scary. And I know that the world would say that surely you can't do the work of the missionary during a pandemic. But I'm God and I can do this.
It's awesome. And we've been privileged to have teams from the International Mission Board here the last few days. And one of the things that they talk about is what they call the missionary task. It's not as if they just send people to the field and say, thumbs up, we hope you do well.
Yeah.
They have actually a strategy for what they're trying to do. We've been talking about it the last couple of days, and I'm going to ask you guys to help us understand what is the missionary task and how does that differ from what we normally think of what missionaries do?
I believe that we can say it's the six were entry, evangelism, discipleship, healthy church formation, leadership development, and then it's exit to partnership. Am I right?
That's right.
You got it.
I just want to say I did that without notes.
Hey,
so
yes, very good.
But the point of that is it gives when you're doing this, you're doing what missionaries are supposed to be doing. And the reason why I think that that's really important is because there are lots of things that are done on a mission field that are not those, and that you have to ask, okay, well then why am I doing this? People come to us and ask for funds that you have to ask, are these things that can be plugged into these six or not?
Rachel, you were able to hear that sitting in this for the first time. As you were hearing those roles, is there anything that stood out to you in that?
But I just think the idea of helping develop leaders is a part of missions. Discipleship is a part of missions. And so we've been to Ecuador, and some of our conversations have been with believers on how to grow them up and help them to then share their faith. It's not just about evangelism. That's a part of it. It's not all six of them, because sometimes you need to be doing things that just allow you access in that you can't necessarily evangelize in that moment, but it gets you in to evangelize.
Yeah, when we were in Wyoming this summer, one of the things that we did was we pulled off a rodeo. On the surface, we weren't directly sharing the gospel with everybody who came to the rodeo. But one of the things we did do was help that church planter get credibility with the people in the town who were suspicious of him and what he was trying to do. That was an entry activity that we were involved with. And I think if we understand that, that can help us as we're trying to do the things on the field. One of the things that's surprising to me is the whole last part, exit to partnership. What is that about?
The goal of an Imb missionary, or any missionary, should be to work yourself out of a job. We want to enter, as it says, enter into a context, learn the language, do evangelism, train up leaders, form healthy local churches. The goal is that when healthy local churches have been established and when leaders have been trained, the most sustaining and substantial movement of Christ is going to take place when indigenous believers amongst that people group are the ones carrying out the mission. And so the entire idea is that we're going to work ourselves to a point where we can exit to partnership, where there might be ways to continue partnering with those indigenous believers in the cultures that we are exiting out of. We might have groups that will continue to travel there. We might have trainings that will continue. There's always going to be prayer and things like that we're always going to partner with. What I love about the missionary task is this is what Christ did. He entered into our context and shared the truth of God with his followers and raised up leaders. What we're doing here in the missionary task is saying, let's mimic or imitate what Jesus did for us, enter in a context, share the gospel faithfully, and then exit to partnership to see something really substantial continue to happen.
It's really helpful for us to think about that. They said that that's the part that the missionary plays, but we here from the church side of things also have a part to play as well in what they call the mobilization task. Mobilization is sort of a new term for us. We have told the church that we want to be involved in mobilizing more and more people to go on the mission field. They say that the church has 6 different parts in the mobilization task. I'm just going to mention each of those. You guys tell me what you think they mean. The first one is inspire. How do we inspire people?
I think that there has to be a voice. We have to communicate. We have to cheer. We have to push that this matters. When you are inspired, you ultimately want to do. And so hopefully that voice, that cheer, that push ultimately moves us to the place of action. I think there are a lot of really good things that are happening here at NorthWoods concerning missions. I would also say this is probably the area that we probably need to work on. We need to work on talking more, pushing more, speaking more podcasts on this topic.
Well, and part of it is just casting a vision for where we're going. I mean, we have these places slated out that we hope to be able to go, or watching the conditions to be able to see whether we go. But casting the vision for that, I think, is a part of that as well. What about equip? How do we equip people?
Lexi Bruner came to me and asked me some questions about sharing the gospel. And she was just like, I'm trying to do this with different coworkers, and we were talking through strategy as far as what does it look like. And I think that can happen not necessarily in a class, but just having a conversation with people. And so kudos to Lexi for sharing the gospel. That's super awesome. And just hoping that we have more and more of that. But I think equipping is just really you kind of becoming comfortable with sharing your faith, whether that's a 1-minute testimony, 5-minute testimony, whatever that looks like, just equipping you to share your faith.
Well, in some of these classes that we just learned about, I know we have the mobilization people. Ty and Karen Hauer have been charged with helping mobilize people. I know that they've been exploring those classes to see how we can teach those here in the coming year. That will help equip people. What about pray?
Listen, prayer is the most important tool in the tool belt for fulfilling the Great Commission. For our churches here in the U.S. and around the world that are seeking to empower missionaries and help fulfill the Great Commission, having a prayer strategy and just talking about how can we pray for unreached people groups? How can we pray for our missionaries who are dealing with, honestly, a lot of trauma on leaving their home culture and being in a different place? And I have some missionary friends who were at our church in Atlanta last week who were sharing about just the trauma of talking to refugees from South Sudan and Uganda who had lost everything. Just the trauma of all of that, not just for the refugees, but also for our missionaries seeking to serve them. And so I think just having a prayer strategy and then just doing it, praying.
I believe it's every month they're gathering prayer requests from missionaries in Ecuador, and they're sending that out to those who want to receive it. So one of the things that you can do is you can let us know you want to receive it. Okay. If you're willing to pray, you can get on the list, but don't get on the list if you're not going to pray. Mm-hmm. Right now, the list is limited to those who are saying, I'll pray.
It's good. But what about to give?
Listen, the opportunities to give towards the work of our missionaries are numerous and are incredible. If you're not super familiar with how the International Mission Board works, how Southern Baptist missionaries work, Southern Baptist missionaries receive their support from a couple of different streams. The International Mission Board receives support through the cooperative program, where Southern Baptist churches around the country give generously to the cooperative program to fund the work of our missionaries and our seminaries and things like that. And so that's a huge portion of support that our missionaries receive in order for them to do their work. The Lottie Moon Christmas offering, we already mentioned once on this pod, is an extremely important avenue for giving during this Christmas season, where 100% of any gift to the Lottie Moon Christmas offering goes directly to the work overseas.
And if I could pause you there, just so that many of you are hearing that you've never heard that term, but we give to the Lottie Moon Christmas offering through our annual missions offering. And so when you see international on the pie chart, that's Lottie Moon Christmas offering.
And thank you for that, because we need churches like you to do that. Here's what's so cool. Our Imb missionaries, when they're on the field, they can be fully focused on the ministry. They don't have to raise their own support, by and large. There are some of our missionaries who exist in different roles who do raise their own support, but the vast majority of our missionaries don't have to raise their own support. There's nothing wrong with missionaries from other denominations who do raise their own support. They do incredible work. I have great friends who work with other mission organizations, but Imb missionaries don't have to do that. And so they can purely focus on ministry. When you look at giving, there are so many incredible places and ways that you can give in our world today. The first gift that I got to work with the International Mission Board was this incredible church in Alabama who generously gave $250,000 gift so that the Nuba people group in the Nuba Mountains of Sudan would have the gospel in their language for the first time. And now that translation's happening. And next year, the Nuba people in Sudan are going to be able to hear the gospel in their heart language. So when you look at giving, I encourage you to check out imb.org/give. Give through your local church. See all the different opportunities for giving. There are numerous incredible ways to partner.
Cool. Fifth is go.
You get to go.
Let's go.
Let's go.
And one of the things that we've communicated is you can go locally to Center of Hope. We've given opportunities to go there and get connected. You may choose to go there and just get plugged in. You may choose to go to one of our other church plants and get plugged in. You may want to go to Center of Hope and, well, I would encourage this and get connected with their clothing bank, their food bank, and use that as a gospel sharing platform. We would encourage that. That happens on Thursday mornings, 9 to 11, Friday mornings, 9 to 11. Just go there, say you're from NorthWoods Church and you're here to serve. I think that you'll find either they'll hug you or give you a high five or a fist bump. That's a big win. And so that's out there and that's available. There's local places to go. And then we're going to be going as a church. We're going to continue to watch COVID. And so we're going to go wisely. But right now our plan is to go to Ecuador. Right now our plan is to go to Puerto Rico. You'll be hearing more information coming about dates.
Cool. Last part in mobilization is send.
We send mission teams and we want to send missionaries. D. Ray Davis and Phil Nelson were here with the mobilization part of the Imb, and they said something that I was sort of proud of our church. They said, maybe you want to set a goal of sending 10% of your church on mission teams. When they said that, I thought to myself, we pretty much do that. Our church runs around 400, where we send about 40 a year on mission team. And so what we haven't crossed a threshold yet is sending missionaries yet. And so I think one of the things that we should be praying for is that happens one day. My desire would be that the 40, which who the 40 is, it changes annually. Okay. But what if the 40 moves to 60? And what if as the 40 moves to 60, as we're able to send more and more gospel sharers out, more and more people who understand the missionary task out, that puts us in a better situation that the likelihood of us sending missionaries rises.
Yeah. And we really are trying to create that culture here where it becomes normal for people to be thinking about, is God calling me to go?
Right.
Should I be going as a vocational missionary, not just as a short-term trip?
Right.
All of those other things can lead to that, and we hope they will lead to that at some point.
Yeah, and if I could go back just a second to talk about giving, one of the things that the congregation doesn't probably understand is that we've had multiple people give separate from offering. We've had multiple people give just for missions this year. Darin, you pastored, I pastored. It is a weird thing when people come up and say, I want to give for missions. That's just not normal. And I think that is speaking to how God is at work on this topic.
And let me just say, I'm not the NorthWoods Church member. I'm here this week and I'm getting to drop in and just see God's doing something at NorthWoods. Clearly, it is so exciting for me to get to see how your church is embracing the Great Commission. All of these different things that we've been talking about, inspire and pray and go and send. These are all things that every follower of Jesus can do. It's not just for the pastors here at NorthWoods. It's not just for our missionaries. It's not just for the super Christian that you know. no matter who you are, if you're a follower of Christ, you're called to be on mission. It doesn't matter your vocation. Your calling is different than your vocation. Your vocation might be that you're a welder. Well, man, be a welder for the glory of God and think about how can you use welding to make disciples to the ends of the earth, not only here where you are, but to the ends of the earth. And I'm seeing that happen at NorthWoods. It's exciting.
It's cool. We're excited about that. Bobby, how is NorthWoods trying to do a better job at mobilization?
Yeah, so first of all, I really do want to thank Ty and Karen. Ty and Karen have made themselves available to help us where we're able to say to Ty and Karen, would you make this your ministry? And they've said yes. So literally their sole ministry is, how do we mobilize more people to go? I think just the fact that that's happening is big. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so I really want to thank them. Recognize that if you see Ty and Karen coming to you and they start a conversation with you about you being on mission or going on mission or about missions, that is very intentional. And we desire that. Okay. And I really just want to say thank you to them.
Yeah. We also have the opportunity moving forward to have folks that will be mobilizing. And so we're excited about the opportunities that we have in the future for that. Since we have Josh here, I wanted to ask him some questions related to being a missionary, being on the mission field, growing up on the mission field. What would you say are some of the benefits of growing up on the mission field? And then what are some challenges related to that as well?
It's a good question. I get that question a lot because I think it's just folks trying to understand what my life might have been like. And when I would describe doing homeschool work on a canoe in the middle of the Amazon rainforest, that some people just don't have a concept for that. But I understand. I wouldn't change my experiences growing up on the field for anything. Yeah. I'm so grateful that God called my family to the field and we got to do that. So always getting to work alongside my parents in their ministry work, incredible. And oftentimes that looked like playing with national kids in the various countries that we lived in and just experiencing life that way. To me, it just kind of felt like a normal growing up experience. I had friends and we played in the neighborhood. It's just the neighborhood was this mountain with banana trees, right? And wouldn't change my experience for the world. Certainly there are challenges. It's always hard for missionary kids. And one of the biggest things that's difficult for a missionary kid is really having a hard time articulating where home is. And so I remember when I went to college, meeting all these people, I came back to the States for college, and the first question they'd always ask is, where are you from? And for a missionary kid, that's a really hard question to answer because you could go into the 30-minute long story about everywhere that you've lived, or you could say, well, I was born in the U.S. and I don't know, we'll just go with that. There are different theories and terms, but missionary kids will often have a home country and a passport country. And so passport country for me was the U.S. I'm an American citizen. I grew up loving the USA, and my parents instilled patriotism and all those kind of things in me. But that wasn't really what I experienced on a daily basis. I experienced growing up in the Caribbean and, like I said, climbing around banana trees and up banana trees. Then I experienced living in the Amazon rainforest. Then I experienced living in the mountains of Ecuador. And so it's always kind of hard to say where home is. There's always a lot of leaving, readjusting. I moved a lot as an MK. A lot of missionary kids move and have to experience that. You're not around your extended family a lot of the time. So there are difficulties there for sure. But again, I wouldn't change my experience for the world. Are you kidding me? I got to live in all these incredible places and get to see God do incredible things. So it was truly a blessing.
Well, I think that one of the things that was surprising for us when we were on the campus in Richmond was how they're not just preparing adults to go on the mission field, that they're very intentional about preparing the children of those missionaries to go. And in their children's center there, they have lots of different cultures and lots of different places like you can shop. There are different bathrooms, toilets, which is, I thought was interesting, squatty potty kind of things for those who would be different. But it made me very proud as somebody who gives to Lottie Moon and to the cooperative program to say, we're thinking holistically about preparing not just a missionary to go, but a missionary family to place them in a place where they can.
Because when God calls somebody to the mission field, He'll never call one spouse, right? God doesn't want to break up marriages. He's going to call both spouses. And if God calls a family to the mission field, He also calls the kids to the mission field. That's certainly something I love about the Imb is that they're focusing on that as well for kids.
Do you have any stories from the mission field that stand out I'm asking this because I know your family was in Ecuador for a little while, where a lot of our people have been.
There are stories that I could tell. I could probably spend a long time talking about seeing anacondas in the river and those kind of things. My parents, when we were in Ecuador, my family were potentially partnering on some ministry projects with the Saint family, Steve Saint. So if you remember the story, End of the Spear from Shell, and I know this church is so involved in Ecuador that you probably know this whole story, but the Jim Elliot, Nate Saint story where the Guarani tribe, after a period of prolonged contact, ended up killing these missionary men who were seeking to share the gospel with them. But the families of those missionaries didn't give up. They said, no, God has still called us here. And now many of the Guarani are believers in Christ. And so fast forward 40 years later, Nate Saint's son, Steve Saint, was continuing to do mission work there. And so one Easter, I remember we got to drive down to Shell, and me and my little brother got in the back of the Range Rover, and we drove down to Shell, right? We went to church, Guarani church, and I didn't really understand anything was going on, but we worshiped, and that was a beautiful Easter service. And we went to lunch afterwards at a little restaurant there in Shell. I'll never forget that bowl of soup with a chicken leg sticking right out the middle of it and some other things, and I ate it. But my parents were at one table with some of the missionaries there talking about some different things they were doing. And then I was sitting down with a younger Guarani guy and an older Guarani gentleman. And we didn't speak the same language. We kind of just smiled at each other, and they showed me how to eat the chicken foot in the soup, and we rolled with that. We got back in the car to drive back to Quito, and my mom turned around and said, Josh, do you know who you were sitting with? And I said, no. He was a very nice older gentleman, but I didn't know him. She said, Josh, that's Mincaye. And if you know the story, Mincaye was one of the lead in the group who murdered those missionaries there on the beaches, but he's also one of the first Guarani that came to faith in Christ and ended up baptizing some of the children of the men that he killed in the river where their fathers were killed because he became the pastor of the local church. What an incredible story and picture of God's grace and redemption, right? And I was sitting there that entire time at that table, had no idea. So he passed away in 2020, but really lived an incredible life.
You've gotten an opportunity to work with donors and missionaries. I just wanted you to have an opportunity. Is there anything that we should know about Southern Baptist missions and people who are involved in that?
Not only has God done amazing things through the International Mission Board, but God has inspired us, and we are looking forward to continue to do amazing things. Our president, Paul Chitwood, set out for us 2025 targets, some 5 targets for the International Mission Board to shoot for by 2025. Number 1 is to send an additional 500 missionaries on the field. The pipeline's there. We just need the resources to be able to send them. And we're seeing that already start, even during COVID. Send an additional 500 missionaries. Target 2 is to mobilize 500 global missionary partners. Now, this is really exciting. Again, we could probably do a whole nother podcast on this, but Imb is saying, how can we use the 175 years of experience and knowledge that God has blessed us with to empower national missionaries in various countries around the world as they seek to go to the nations as well, have them partner with our Imb teams in various locations, some locations that we as Imb missionaries can't even go. And so that's exciting. Target 3 is to engage 75 global cities, specific strategic global cities with comprehensive strategies. As we look to the future of the world, the vast majority of people are going to live in cities. And many of those cities are going to be in what we call now the developing world. The continent of Africa alone is going to have, I don't know the specific number, but many of those really large mega cities in 15, 20 years. Vast majority of the world's population are going to be in cities. We need to be targeting them well. Target 4 is to mobilize 75% of Southern Baptist churches to prayerfully and financially support the Imb. NorthWoods already does that. Kudos. This is great. And number 5, the last target is to increase giving to the International Mission Board by 6% annually. And by God's grace, we're seeing that happen as well. And so that's kind of where we're going with the Imb. Like I said in the beginning, God has been so faithful for 175 years. For us to continue for the next 175 years doing what we think God's called us to, it will require partnership with churches here in the U.S. and people boldly saying the Great Commission is for them, not just for someone else. And so it's certainly an exciting time.
You have any advice for families that are considering being career missionaries that God will call to the field?
Yeah. I liked, Bobby, how you brought this up earlier, that a goal for your church is to send somebody from NorthWoods. It's very possible that person's listening to this podcast today, and God's already working on their heart. I know that there's a lot that comes with that. There's a lot that comes with the idea of leaving your family and leaving everything that you've always known and going to the ends of the earth. And so I know that is a big, big thing. And for a lot of people, it's scary in a lot of ways. But I can tell you that God is so faithful to go with you in that process. I remember a Sunday a couple years back, I was in church and we had an interim pastor at our church in Texas, and he loved the theologian Dr. Seuss. So from the book, Oh, the Places You'll Go, there's a snippet in there, and there's a Zode, the character called a Zode, who comes to a fork in the road. And he looks at the fork in the road and he thinks, well, I could go left, but it might be really hot if I go left. So, okay, maybe I could go right. Well, it might be really cold. And the whole point is the Zode at the fork in the road never goes anywhere. He just stays right there. And so if you feel like God might be calling you to the mission field, just take a step one of those directions and see if that is what God's calling you to. See how God empowers you and leads you. If that's not what you're supposed to do, He's going to make that pretty clear. And if it is, He's going to open those opportunities for you to go. The International Mission Board is open, and we're sending missionaries. So if you feel that calling, connect with our team in Richmond. We have mobilizers and folks who can walk you through what that looks like and what the various options are for you. It might be partnering with your church and going on a short-term trip. It might be going on a 2-year journeyman term where we have many young people who go around the world and partner on IMB teams for 2 years, and maybe that's what God's called them to. But it just might be that God's calling you to career vocational missionary ministry. And if that's what it is, be faithful to that calling and call us. We want to help partner with you in that process.
That sets up really perfectly something that Bobby had talked to the church about, the missions evangelism pathway of talking about starting with where you are, sharing the gospel with the people who are right around you to ultimately going to the ends of the earth. Bobby, I want to give you an opportunity as we finish up here. Is there anything else you want to say about missions at NorthWoods?
We talk about the fact that we don't celebrate really well. And I want to celebrate what's happened because I don't think people understand in the ways that our funds are being used. And so, Rachel, I'm going to ask you to count off. Are you ready? We financially supported Community Central Church here in Evansville.
That's number 1.
We financially supported an African-American church plant in Louisville named House of Refuge.
Number 2.
We financially supported Redeemer Church in Terre Haute, which is a new church plant that is meeting in a school.
Number 3.
We financially supported Cody Cowboy Church in Cody, Wyoming.
Number 4.
The Home Place, another church plant in Wyoming.
Number 5.
Redeemer Church here on the west side in Evansville.
Number 6.
Wind River Church in Shoshone, Wyoming.
Number 7.
The Hispanic church plant at Oak Hill Baptist Church, right around the corner from us.
Number 8.
New college church plant that is at IU Bloomington that started about a year ago. It's a SALT church plant that is now running almost 100 people.
Number 9.
We financially supported about 5 church plants that have come together. We'll count this one as 1, but 5 church plants that have come together who were in need of training. They're Hispanic church plants in the Fort Wayne community.
Number 10.
Redemption City Church is another church plant that we have also helped, which is up in the Bloomington area.
Number 11.
Then we have Brad McCowan, which is a new church plant that we are helping on the northern part of our state.
That's number 12.
Cornerstone Fellowship, another new church plant we are helping on the northern part of our state.
That's number 13.
And then lastly is not a church plant, but we are helping financially Angel Javier Pico Navarrete in Ecuador, who is working with church planters all across the country of Ecuador. And by the way, they're receiving as low as $2,500 to $12,000. This doesn't include the people that may call you, Darin, or the people that may call me that we're coaching. And so I say that to say, as a congregation, you should be encouraged. Yeah. This is the reason why the North American Mission Board has approached us. I'll go ahead and say this. North American Mission Board has approached us saying, look, y'all are doing more church planting than some state conventions. And they are wanting to put money in to basically pay half of the next full-time salary so that that person can help us with handling all the mission stuff. And that was their idea when they heard all of this. I think that is just mind-boggling. But the reason why it's mind-boggling is they started seeing all of the things that are happening. We should recognize God is at work, and to God be the glory. So yeah, I just wanted to close with, look at all this. It's nuts.
Something really worth celebrating what God is doing. And the future is really bright as well in terms of where we're going. It's even going to get better. And we're so grateful for our congregation and their generosity and their heart to serve and their willingness to be involved in these things. And so we'll celebrate those things and look forward to the future. Well, to God be the glory for great things He has done.
Thanks for tuning in to the NorthWoods Church Matters podcast. If you'd like to find out more about NorthWoods Church, you can visit us at our website, www.northwoodschurch.org. Again, that's www.northwoodschurch.org.